Hi, everybody. I'm Gaynor Milky, and welcome to Moving the Needle, where we talk about digital transformation for accounting firms. And I'm joined by my co-host, John Higgins from Higgins Advisory. And today we have some special guests. So, John, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks for getting us started here, Gaynor. And so let me first introduce Jamie Lopiccolo. Jamie's in the lower left corner of your screen. And Jamie has a practice in Lake Orion, Michigan. Actually, I come from Rochester, Michigan, so we're only about, I don't know, 5 or 10 miles apart. Gaynor comes from Ann Arbor. And then we have Matthew Kidd from Blundell and Kidd, and Matthew's in Livonia, Michigan. So we have the Michigan contingency here today.
That's
And
right.
we've asked Jamie and Matt if they would be willing to share some of their experience and their practices on how they use technology. And today we want to focus specifically on the tax side of things. So I thought I'd start by asking Jamie and Matthew to each give us a little bit of background on their practices, and then we'll jump into some questions. So Jamie, you want to lead us off there?
Sure. And thanks for having us on. Appreciate that. Yeah, and let's go Michigan, right? As John said, our practice is in Lake Orion, Michigan. We are what we call a business and tax advisory firm, specializing in driving business and tax advisory services to our small, medium-sized businesses and even individuals, more businesses or individuals that have some sort of rental or investments or high net worth. Our practice is about five to six people, depending on the season, as we continue to grow. And as I said before, we focus in on deriving that advisory first format. So all of our clients go through an upfront advisory so that they understand, and we understand their business and how to continually provide advisory services throughout their relationship.
And
Excellent.
Jamie, you are immediate past chair of Michigan CPA Association.
Yep. So I've both Matt and I serve on the board of directors, and I recently went through the executive committee and it just ended my chairship of the MICPA in September.
Yeah,
That's
great. Well,
great.
thank you for your service as a fellow Michigander CPA. We appreciate
Yep.
your
Yep.
volunteerism. But
Yep.
maybe more pertinent to this series, this interview, is that obviously both of you have a lot of experience interacting with a lot of other practitioners, so that
Yep.
that you bring some value in that regard as well. Matthew, how about a little bit about your practice?
Yeah. So similar, Jamie, we've got about 4 to 6 FTEs depending on the time of year. Kind of we add some part timers in tax season. We do on the business side of things, we do about 60 CAS clients that we're doing monthly or quarterly work with. And then we do about 500 orphan 1040s in addition to the tax work related to the CAS clients.
Yeah, great. So nice practice you've got going there as well. And what we thought we'd do, guys, is usually we like to keep these recordings to about 20 minutes. So we'll do the first part on tax compliance, then we'll do a part two on more about tax research and tax planning tools you might be using. And
I
again,
just
the
wanted,
main focus is just to kind of talk about how you're moving the needle to become more of a digital practice. And so, Gaynor, I just have a few questions we might want to run by you. Start with what's working well in your practices relative to using technology in your tax compliance services. First.
For us, the technology changes, so I don't know if anything really goes well because as we implement one technology, something else comes in, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I have this shiny penny syndrome where I like to follow the technology and stay up with it as much as possible. But what was working well for us? I mean, at the end of the day, I want to say that our core tax program, we use UltraTax, is probably the bedrock of our practice. That is the one uh, element that has stayed stable throughout my 7 years on my own, and then the 20 some years prior to that, and so forth. So UltraTax is working well, and then we try to build around that. Right now, we're a deep-seated Thomson Reuters firm, so we use their Onvio based project management and workflow and all of that. This year, we're going to be introducing something new in technology wise. We're going to be introducing the SafeSend program and technology, including the gather portion. So we're going to be changing our workflow for the first time in a long time relative to how we service clients on the front end and the back end of the of the process. In the past, we've always been worried about how do we get information through, and we found that the front end and the back end, the gathering and then the client data work, and then the delivery seem to always suffer. So we've kind of tried to refocus our effort to how do we smooth in those two elements of the practice, and then for us internally, we can work on how do we get the return through those processes, the internal processing, but really we really wanted to focus on the client experience this year.
And
Can I
Jamie,
I'll just ask a couple of questions, kind of double team so that we're efficient with everybody's time. But in terms of any niches, are you guys serving any types of client niches? And then just James, with all that you're trying to do, with changing the tax workflow, when did you start kind of reimagining what you were going to be doing? Like, how long has that process been?
Sure. I'll let Matt answer the niche question first, because I think Matt is more nichey than we are.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are almost exclusively independent medical practices.
Okay.
Definitely on the CAS side, I think we're over 80% independent medical practices, particularly with veterinarians, and then we're kind of moving into even more specifically direct primary care, concierge medicine.
Okay. Excellent. And
Yeah,
then
I wouldn't say we have a niche. We service mostly small to medium sized businesses, closely held individuals. So it's not a niche in services. It's more of a niche in ownership and the style of ownership and so forth.
like S Corp
S Corps are right. We go through the S Corp, small business owner, S Corp LLCs. It's I don't think we have an industry niche. We just have more of a size niche, more to the small to medium size, non-financial statement issued, mostly tax driven, tax advisory driven services.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as kind of reimagining what you're doing with the tax workflow, how long has that been on the radar?
So that for us, technically it's an ongoing process, but we really, so after every tax deadline in April and October, we have what we call a postmortem, where we sit down with the entire office. We review what worked, what didn't work, and this year came out of it is we just felt that we're still not delivering the perfect client experience that we want to deliver, and so we started going down that journey in probably right into May, and then as we go into our CPE, continuing education, and going to seminars and various conferences throughout the year, that starts to morph into the direction that we knew we needed to change the experience to the client. We just didn't know where we needed to change it to. And then so talking to other practititioners, talking to other vendors and so forth, we started to develop that strategy throughout. We implemented the partially the safe send in the extension season, went pretty well, and now we're going to go into it full bore here starting January 1st.
That's great. So you sort of did the little test run around extensions and
yeah, we swapped out services too. We were using another tax delivery, or not tax delivery, but another AI more generated, but that helped the internal processes, not the client experience. And so we just said we're going to swap that out and put in this and see if that works for now.
Yeah, I like the focus on client service. That's great. It's great to hear.
And
So Matt, what's working for you folks?
So we've got a similar tax flow to Jamie, and I think we might disagree a little bit on what's working well, though.
Okay.
So, I mean, SafeSend, I'm a huge SafeSend advocate. We switched over to them 3 years ago for the return delivery, and I'd say there's really only been one software that everybody on my team was happy that we implemented, and that's been SafeSend. So absolutely incredible from the client delivery side. I'm not as gutsy as Jamie. I'm not diving into the Gather, since this is the first year that they launched it. I have a little PTSD from being an early adopter on past tax and accounting software. So I'm going to wait to see how that works for him first.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's good that you have a friend like him.
And Matt, what is your core tax system? What are you?
So we use UltraTax.
Okay.
That's UltraTax and Onvio, I think, is where our opinions might differ. I say I am very comfortable with UltraTax for the same reason that Jamie is. It's all I've ever used.
Mm-hmm.
It works well. but it worked just as well in 1995 when it came out.
Yeah.
So where I'm optimistic that you're going to have a better product come out in the next few years. Whether it is ProConnect gets their act together and does a good job of implementing AI within it, or you've got a couple of the more startup type companies that started out in the tax planning and research that is now moving into compliance, whether or not they'll be able to build a product that really makes it more automated. Because right now we're using SurePrep as a bolt-on to UltraTax to bring some level of automation, but it's still clearly a bolt-on when you're using it. It's not a seamless experience.
I would agree with that.
Fun fact, I actually worked at Thomson Reuters back in the early 2000s. So I was doing all the UltraTax renewals. So definitely it's been a journey around UltraTax. I mean, it's a great product, but you've got to be able to keep up with the times with technology too, right? So
yeah.
Awesome.
So how about client portals? Jamie, what do you do with the client portal? Do you use it much? Do clients use it?
Yeah, we use client portals. I mean, our firm is about as digital as we can get it. You know, I like to brag that during COVID, we literally shut the lights off when I went home, turned the lights on, and was continuing to work, never missed a beat, right? So we are mostly cloud-based services as it goes. So we use Onvio, Thomson Reuters' new cloud-based Onvio product for the portals. We are going to be trying to figure out how to integrate that with the SafeSend technology and what SafeSend has as well on the gathering and so forth. But our primary area for clients to send information to us is going to be through Onvio.
So I think for some of our viewers, they might not be real clear on what's, where does SafeSend start and stop versus, say, the client portal.
So again, to Matt's point, we're acting as the guinea pigs this year for Gather. Our understanding that Gather is going to be able to do from client organizer to gather information to making sure the client has given us everything they need they've almost got a little bit of a tracker percentage of okay, you've uploaded 80% of your documents, 90% of your documents, so forth. And then that'll stop at that point of gathering, getting everything in. Then we will do our internal processes to process the tax return, get the information into UltraTax and so forth. We decided to not use we dropped the SurePrep for the SafeSend just because, again, it's economies of scale and what makes sense. And so we'll go back to inputting and doing that most of that stuff and go through our internal checklist QC and stuff, and then the delivery. SurePrep picks back up on the delivery portion, giving it to the client. So it bookends the processing, if you will.
And does SafeSend work with the other tax software apps as well?
Matt, you've used it longer than I have. I believe that it does.
Yeah. The nice with UltraTax, it's one of the few things that Thomson lets directly integrate. So you've got a print button from the print screen in UltraTax. Yeah. I believe CCH also has that, but I'm not positive. The other ones, you end up having to print PDFs to SafeSend, and then it populates it within their system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're both pretty positive on the SafeSend solution.
Yeah, I think SafeSend has been, I would say, rapidly improving. Where its core was they were really, I would argue, the only one on the market that delivered a fantastic e-signature process a few years ago. So that was how they won the day. They're now building on where Jamie was talking about those features. They're building into more of I call it a tax caddy full suite. Whereas tax caddy, I don't think has really quite delivered on the e-signature smoothness, at least when the KVAs were required for everyone. So I'm hopeful that SafeSend kind of takes the best of both of those going forward.
It's been kind of interesting to watch, when you get these, SafeSend's not a startup anymore. They've been around for a while, but compared to Thomson Reuters, they're not nearly this. But the smaller companies seem to be just a lot more innovative. They can be nimble and get products to market quicker, it seems like. So.
Well, 100%. And I think that, I've expressed this to some of the Thomson Reuters executives that I've met throughout. is they're still allowing UltraTax to wag the tail, as opposed to, at the end of the day, us being more advisory based. The tax return is a byproduct of all of our services, planning and coaching and all of that. That's our primary, where we want to be. That's the space that we want to fit in for our firm, and the tax return is the byproduct. But Thomson Reuters still feels that the tax return is the driver for everything. And until, that's the challenge that they have, is they've got to change that mindset to make it act as the byproduct. Even though it's a good byproduct, they have to get all the other parts of it first. That's why that you've seen them acquire the SurePrep. Although I disagree that might have been they shouldn't have maybe been their first acquisition as opposed to SafeSend, but maybe SafeSend wasn't ready to play ball with them. I don't know, but to my point, I think that Thomson needs to, and that's Matt even said all these startups that are coming up here, right? Those startups are starting to see that the tax return is just the byproduct of what we're doing, and they're creating the tax. They're starting from the ground up. And even when Thomson tried to do on-VO tax, they just ported over, for the most part, UltraTax. It didn't reimagine. So and that's where that's where the difference is going to be, is where these startups reimagine how the tax return works in our workflow.
Yeah. So how do your teams, I guess, deal with changes in technology? Are they pretty gung-ho that try something new, or are they approaching tax season going, okay, this is going to be interesting, we've got like a new workflow going on?
I mean, I always think that is the most difficult part of, it's change management. If you find a team member that is gung-ho about constantly trying something new and they know how to do work competently, I think you hang on to them for dear life, because the reality is people don't like change.
Right.
So it's managing how much you're willing to change, what the biggest priorities are, or the biggest pain points from either the client side or the team side, and kind of prioritizing one or two big changes that you can do per year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my experience with technology over the years has always been that buying the technology is the really easy part. Right? It's getting it integrated into your workflows, getting your staff to buy into it. That's the tough part. That's a lot of projects fail at that stage, for sure.
We make sure our entire team is involved most of our team is involved from the initial demo call all the way through the process. And at some point in time, I just hand it off and say, I'm not doing this anymore, and put the team in charge. Right. So I make one of my team members the team champion for, and like when we saw SafeSend, pretty much my entire administrative team threatened to quit if I didn't buy this. So from that perspective, they already had the buy-in, right? Because so they see the demo, they see how it values because most, in my opinion, most of those demos go to the owners only, or the decision makers, and then they come down and say, we're doing this, right? So I've just kind of taken the approach, this is going to affect my admin team, or this is going to affect my tax prep team, or whoever. I'm going to bring them into the process because they're doing more of it than I am, and to make sure that it's going to make their day a lot easier, and so forth. So the only one that we didn't do that is moving over to we moved over to JotForms, or started using JotForms this year. I made that decision without them, but we'd already started using Google Forms. So that was an easy transition, just moving from a different program.
Well, what is that program exactly, Jamie? What does that do?
So JotForms is like, if you've used, I don't know what it is in Microsoft, it might be called Forms. I know it's called Forms in Google. It's a form creation product that allows you to gather information from your clients, or from wherever, surveys and so forth. I think it's a little bit more robust than what Microsoft has and than what Google Forms has. Where we really drove is because we're a practice forward firm, which is a Thomson Reuters advisory based consulting, I guess, and they had a bunch of forms already built into JotForms, so it kind of was the easy button for us. But what we've learned over the last year or so is we are more now in the business of gathering data, especially as advisors, of gathering data than anything else. So really, it's going to be our data source, if you will, for gathering data from all our clients, so that we know how to service them better. We can say that we're in the business of tax preparation or whatever, but we're really in the business of data gathering. because we have to do this to do the advisories and to do other things. So we wanted to create a better way to gather data.
Mhm. So I guess we can't have the discussion on tax automation and data without talking a little bit about security and how you guys approach security in your firm, and where are you in that process of not only obviously having a WISP but implementing it, and where does that lay with your team as well?
Yeah, so we're actually in the, I guess, in process, or just did, depending on how you want to call it, of onboarding with Practice Protect,
Okay.
which was really a key part of ensuring that we were compliant with the new requirements.
Mhm.
I think eventually that's going to work well for us. We're in that onboarding process, so there's some wrinkles. I think I've had some team members cussing me out under their breath the past week or so, but that was
Matt,
really,
could you talk a little more about that, because some of our audience may not be familiar with what you're referring
yeah. So Practice Protect, I think the easiest way to describe it would be, think back to Thomson Reuters Virtual Office when everything was included in your Thomson Reuters suite. So every program you used was in Virtual Office. You logged in there, then you launched everything from there. Practice Protect is similar to that for anything that's browser based. So it houses your Onvio, SafeSend, SurePrep, Virtual Office, QuickBooks, ADP, Paychecks. All of those links are housed within Practice Protect so that you have a single sign on. And then you launch the applications with, basically, they have a password manager built into Practice Protect.
Oh, okay.
So that none of the team members outside of the administrator knows what any of the passwords are.
Is that a Thomson Reuters product?
No, so it was independent out of Australia. This year they were purchased by Rightworks.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see. It had been very cheap. When PE buys companies, they have a tendency to increase the price, and Rightworks is effectively a PE company. So we'll see whether it stays affordable. But right now, I think it's only, for the base, it's $38 a user a month.
So everybody go and get Practice Protect now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's got some other things built into it. Like you've got, you can put on ISP locks, geographic locks. So like we have a outsourced employee in the Philippines. So we have an ISP lock on the office location. So he can't access anything outside of that office location. Similarly, we've got a geographic lock on the continental United States. So if somebody's leaving the country, they need to notify us. And really, I mean, that's important because as you well know, the cyber attacks largely come from Eastern Europe, definitely outside of the country.
Yeah.
So it's just another preventive measure. You can see where all the logins occurred. If there's anything suspicious, it'll automatically lock the account for a set period of time until you have time to review it. And then it covers all your applications. The other nice benefit of it is it can store client logins so that the team members don't have the client logins. So if they add you as a delegated user on Chase Bank, you can have 2-3 people that have access to that login without ever knowing the login. So you can go out, pull the statements without actually the team knowing those client logins.
That sounds like a great tool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably, Gaynor, wrap up this first segment. Any last thoughts either of you guys have about ways we could suggest that the other practitioners improve their tax compliance in terms of the digital transformation?
Got any words of wisdom for people?
They're going to have
get out of it.
I think that, yeah, I mean, there's I think a lot of small firms are moving digital. They're being forced into this, and I think they have to stop going kicking and screaming. They have to just kind of jump in with both feet and say, we're going to do this. You're not putting this train back into the station at all. And if firms don't do this and adapt, we didn't talk much about the AI and tax compliance, and I know that we probably should, but if you don't start embracing some of the new technologies that are out there, you're going to get surpassed. And maybe some firms are ready just to retire. And so it may be one of those that forces some firms out of the business. It's going to take people into a different direction.
Yeah.
So just one last question to kind of wrap this up. Obviously, both of you have been involved in the state society. You go to conferences. How do you keep up with what's happening, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Are there resources that you're tapping into, or things that you subscribe to, or specific conferences you go to? Because I think that's part of the puzzle for people is how do you keep a handle on all of this without spending all day long trying to figure out your tech?
Doing Google searches of software products and stuff. Yeah. I think part of it is and Matt and I both go to a lot of the same conferences, but going to some of the small practitioner conferences. Matt, I know, went to a couple AICP. I came back from Digital CPA in Denver this year. And so really talking with other especially if you're a small practitioner, talking with other small practitioners of what are they doing. Even out of this conversation today, I didn't even know about the Practice Protect, and now I'm going to be looking into that from our firm's perspective, right? So keeping your ears open and listening to other firms and just kind of listening to what other people are doing is a great way. Is just interacting and networking with other firms.
That's great.
Yeah, I call Jamie, figure out what he's trying, then I wait a year to see if it's
exactly.
There you go.
He allows me to be the guinea pig.
But no, I mean, same with Jamie. I mean, I was just looking. I think I spent, because I was trying to wrap up my books for the year. I mean, I spent $6,000 on continuing education last year.
Right.
So I go to a ton of conferences around the country, and I always say, I mean, you live in a bubble, but you get to choose what bubble you live in. And it's really important to live in a bubble with other people that are forward thinking and are embracing the new ways and new technologies.
And maybe a good way to close, Matt, is on that line about, spending $6,000 on CP. That's encouraging because I know a lot of practitioners really try to do it as, least expensively as possible, but that doesn't always mean you're going to get good quality. And so I think back to Jacqueline, who was the good old CP director for the Michigan CPA Association. And one of his favorite quotes I liked is, if you think education's expensive, try ignorance.
I like that.
All right, so thanks, guys. So we'll look forward to our next segment where we're going to talk about more of the tax research, tax planning technologies. So really appreciate you joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you.